You mentioned a founder freakout. Do you remember one of those that still sticks with you today that at the moment you're like, oh my God, this is going to be catastrophic, but ended up not being? And do you remember one that you learned from?
I may have like blacked them out of my memory, but I do love the quote, and I've co-opted it, that in a startup, the highs are high, the lows are low, and they're 10 minutes apart.
Mm-hmm.
And it is one of those things that, like, early into the thing, there are times where you think you're going to take over the world, everything's going great, and then you have a phone call where something happens where you then
It's over.
flip, immediately, and you're like, what am I doing? How did I convince people to join me on this journey? Like, this is horrible. And so, the early days is a little bit more manic depressive than I would have liked, and even my personality set is pretty even keel, but man, was I having high highs, low lows in the early days of starting the company.
Do you remember an example of a moment where you had something you needed to fix? Maybe it's not a problem you had to fix, but just something you had to fix. Like maybe you need to find a head of people or just engineer or something of that matter. And you just couldn't solve that problem right away. And then you saw something that you were able to connect the dots, and then you took action on it right away.
Two that stick out in my mind. I mean, we were talking about going into a heavily regulated industry. And so, I'll even tell the company, the only thing that qualifies me to run M1 or the brokerages, I started it. I started it at 25. And so nothing qualified me to be the CEO of a broker dealer. Mm-hmm. But it's one of those things that the rules for the broker dealer they're out there. They're codified. FINRA puts them on the website. The SEC has rules. And so, it's like, I knew, hey, we had to start up a broker dealer. So you just start writing the business plan for the broker dealer and the policies and procedures according to the resources that are available. And even more recently, I recently purchased a bank. I have no business owning a bank. And it's one of those things of, I had a conversation in November of 2020 with a lawyer who ended up representing me, talking through the various plans of, hey, you could buy it as an entity, but there's difficulties due to XYZ, or you could buy it as an individual, which have these benefits. The second I heard that, I was like, all right, well, I guess I'm buying a bank. And I immediately,
as
discovered
Brian Barnes.
Yeah, exactly. In my name, I wrote the check for it. And so it was immediately find the target, do the negotiations. We had the negotiations done by January, so it only took 2 months to do that. I knew that I had to put a business plan together for the OCC. I've never written a business plan for a bank before, but it's one of those things that you just start writing. You start doing, you get feedback and you get commentary. And by July, the transaction had closed, had the conversations with regulators. And so I'm not afraid to go into areas where I don't have experience is maybe one way to put it. And I think because I'm curious and a fast learner, it just sort of gives me a leg up of I'm willing to throw myself into the deep end and get that experience in a very compressed amount of time.